Welcome back, everybody. We are up to the Parsha portion of our living Jewishly. So last week, sadly I was not feeling well, and we did not have a class. It's not sadly that I wasn't feeling well. It's sadly that we didn't have a class. And so we're going to do a double portion, even though it's not really a double portion this week. But we're going to do Shalach and we're going to do Korach, so that way we don't miss out on one of the portions. So Shalach was a very important Parsha, like every Parsha is. And there are tremendous lessons that we can take from the story of what happened in Parsha Shalach, which is the 37th portion from the beginning of the Torah, the fourth portion in the book of Numbers. And as we know, there are 136 verses, 1,840 words, and 7,055 letters. There are 5 mitzvahs in the portion of Shalach, 3 positive and 2 negative. And now we have the story of the spies. Okay, at the insistence of the Jewish people, which is a very interesting thing. Why are they insisting to have spies? What don't you believe in Hashem for that you need to have spies? What didn't you see? So here's the thing. We have to realize that, first is, who are we to judge the challenges that they face then? But if we think about our day-to-day lives, we have the same exact things going on. Anybody here who hasn't experienced a miracle today? Right? We've all experienced miracles. We have miracles. Every day we have a miracle. The fact that we get out of bed every day is a miracle. Right? We have miracles all the time. The problem is that they seem to be regular miracles, which is why everyone looks puzzled when I say, did you experience a miracle? Me? Miracle today? I don't know, no miracle. Right? But when we started thinking about it, we're like, yeah, we had many miracles today. I almost slipped and I caught myself. I didn't. That's a miracle right there. Yes, there are things that happen that if we stop and think, we'll realize that they're miracles. But otherwise, they seem to be just ordinary events. The Jewish people saw the miracles of the 10 plagues in Egypt. They saw the splitting of the sea. They saw the manna, but it became regular to them. So they stopped feeling that, whoa, what a miracle. They stopped feeling that awe of a constant existence in the miracles, and therefore they get back to the regular habits. What do you mean we should go into the land of Israel? What do you mean? Who even says it's a good land? Oh, we'll send spies, right? Because you have to deal with the reality on the ground. So the fact that they insisted already tells us that they were living in a way, again, not to judge anyone, with a diminished recognition of the miracles that they were experiencing at every moment. And with Hashem's permission, Moshe sends 12 scouts, one from each tribe, to investigate the land of Canaan, which is later to become the land of Israel.
That the leader of every tribe? That's amazing to me. That the
Yes, it's a very big problem. How can the leaders of the tribes, these are not some Joe Schmo of every tribe, these are the leaders of every tribe. How is it that they can fall into such a thing? We're going to see it in a minute, okay? Anticipating trouble, Moshe changes Hoshea's name to Yehoshua. We know the name defines a person. The name defines a person, which is why we try to use the Hebrew names of every person, right, Chaim? Right? But also, sometimes the name also gives assistance from above. Hoshea is different than Yehoshua. He added Hashem's name so that he'll feel the presence of Hashem along with him at all times, expressing a prayer that God will not let him fail in this mission. They returned 40 days later carrying unusually large fruit. So they already it's like when you're trying to impress upon someone a claim, what you do is you have to shock them. Shock and awe. Remember shock and awe, right? So you try to, what's that?
I remember Shaka Khan.
Well, shock and awe was that the Israeli mission that they did? Right?
No, that Shaka Khan was
the first Iraq war. There we go. That's right. When 10 of the 12 scouts state that the people of Canaan are as formidable as the fruit, the people are discouraged. So now they see, these are the regular classic CNN viewers, right? The classic, whatever they say is Bible. Okay, whatever they say is Bible, right? There are people like that. Someone once gave a name for them. It's called low information voters. Right? There are people who, whatever you tell them, they'll believe, which is why whoever runs for office, they knock on doors. Why do you need to knock on doors? Just do your research. Because most people don't do their research.
Yeah.
Right? They don't do research. Mm-hmm. So here, the candidate came to my door. That's why I'm going to vote. Then if you have 50 people going out knocking on every single door, guess what's going to happen? They're all going to vote for that candidate. Unless you have someone who is an educated consumer, an educated voter, then it changes that.
Why is 40 so important? I know it means rebirth, but why did we pick 40 days to go up?
Well, 40 days is always a number of
40.
Right. It says Arba'im Shana Akut Bidor. After 40 years where a generation goes against God, God says, now I'm going to punish them. Meaning 40 is that number where it gives something life.
Okay.
So now they're giving sort of a validity to the claims that they're making. We didn't just go in and 2 days later come out. We stayed there for enough period of time where now you're going to take this claim as valuable. Kalev and Yehoshua, the only two scouts still in favor of the invasion. They try bolstering the people's spirits, but the majority always wins. And here you have 10 verses 12. The nation, however, decides that the land is not worth the potentially fatal risks and instead demands to return to Egypt, which, if you think about it, doesn't make any sense. See, us sitting here, it doesn't make any sense. And we say, what in the world are they thinking? Don't you realize what God has done to us? Don't you realize that for us, right? But he's done to us, meaning by carrying us out of Egypt, by feeding us every day with the manna. But think about it for a second. The food we have today, is that not manna also? You go to the stores today and there's an unbelievable abundance. You can buy every type of fruit and vegetable at any season. Is that not a miracle? But we take that for granted as well. We can take that for granted as well, not realizing the gift that we have and make, sadly, silly decisions based on that frame of mind that we're in. Moshe's fervent prayers save the nation from heavenly annihilation. God wanted to annihilate the Jewish people and get rid of him because these people are just a stiff-necked people. They don't get it, and I'm going to have to start all over again. However, God declares that they must remain in the desert for 40 years until the men who wept, the scouts' false report pass away, which is why nobody who left Egypt entered into the land of Israel. Right? We went into this, but we'll leave it. The simple understanding is that the people cried. Joshua did, but the people who cried did not merit to leave the land, to get entered to the land of Israel. Now, this day that they cried is the day of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av forever is a day of tragedy. And the 3 weeks that lead up to it, which will be, we're starting tonight is Rosh Chodesh. So in 17 days, we'll have the fast of the 17th of Tammuz. And that already is 40 days before Rosh Chodesh Elul, which is 40 days before Yom Kippur. And we're already in the high holiday season before we know it. So we're going to be only 30. We're going to be, from tonight, it's 90 days to Rosh Hashanah. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's insane. Every year. 90 days to Rosh Hashanah from tonight. I know. I'm terrified. I'm terrified already. It was just Rosh Hashanah yesterday. You know what I mean? So it is unbelievable. So either way, that's why we're here to learn Torah. Because one thing we know is if we sit and learn Torah every single day, So even if the days go fast, at least we filled it up with something valuable, right? So Moshe's fervent prayer saves the nation. Number one, prayer helps. Prayer helps. Number two is that God, so everyone needs to, whoever cried cannot enter into the land of Israel. And they're going to, so now, what happened on Tisha B'Av? Midrash tells us that everyone went into a grave on Tisha B'Av.
Right.
Midrash says that they all dug graves in the desert. Everyone laid in the grave, and those who were awake the next morning got out. Those who weren't stayed there, and they got buried. They got buried there. But it was like they knew that this was the day that chop chop, this is all coming to an end. Okay. A remorseful group rashly begins an invasion of the land based on God's original command, right? Before God said that. And then Moshe warns them not to proceed, but they ignore this and are massacred by the Amalekites and the Canaanites. The land of Israel. God instructs Moshe concerning the offerings to be made when the Bnei Israel will finally enter the land. It's interesting why this commandment needs to be given now. When they get in 40 years, we'll worry about it then. Why do we need to, right? Because by learning the laws of the offerings, it's as if we fulfill them. And by reciting the verses, today we don't bring offerings, but the beginning of every prayer, the morning and the afternoon prayers, you bring offerings at night. So the morning and the afternoon, we have something called karbanot, which is the offerings. And by reciting those prayers, it's as if we've actually brought those offerings on the altar. The people are commanded to remove challah, right? We know what challah means. Challah means to separate a part of the bread that we bake, a gift for the Kohanim from their dough. Challah is not the name of the bread, by the way. Challah is the name of the part you take off of the bread. But that's what we name challah, even though it got its name because challah was taken from it. Right? If you look on the challah that you buy in the store that's made in one of the bakeries in New York, you'll see they have in Yiddish, they have the words, it says challah genumen. Challah has been taken. All right? And now in English they'll write challah bread or challah, whatever, that's the label it. But really, what it really means is that challah has been separated from this bread. Now, typically, from every 5 pound flour bag, you can take challah. That's enough of a sizable amount that you can take challah. Smaller than that, smaller batch than that, is not necessarily requiring to separate the challah. Okay, which is a portion that would go to the Kohen. Today we don't do that, so we just burn that part or we throw it out. The laws for an offering after an inadvertent sin for an individual or a group are explained as well. And now we have the commandment to be holy. Should someone blaspheme against God and be unrepentant, he will be cut off spiritually from his people. Right? You're separating yourself from the people. One man is found gathering wood on public property in violation of the laws of Shabbat and is executed as per how Hashem commands us to handle it. Moshe says, what do I do with this guy? And God says, take him outside the camp and kill him. The laws of tzitzit are taught. The tzitzit is the requirement for every four-cornered garment to have fringes on them. So we have special garments. We have a talit, which is a special garment that we wear, but we also have under, some people wear it under their shirt, some people wear it above their shirt. If you go to Brooklyn, you'll see the Hasidim, they wear them above, right? You'll see their tzitzis on top of their shirt. You did, you just don't remember that you saw it. And I'll show you, I can show you a picture and you'll be like, yeah, I see that now. I've seen that before. So the idea is that because it's a mitzvah that is, now Rizal says, something interesting. He says wearing tzitzis is like wearing body armor, a protection for you. That it's your whole body is being protected by. That's the tzitzit that I have right here. Just an interesting thing. Side note: when you go into a cemetery, everyone is supposed to put in their tzitzit. You're supposed to not have it out when you're in a cemetery. Why? Because the halacha tells us that it's lo'eg larash. It's like mocking the poor. Mocking the poor, right? Imagine you walk through a homeless shelter, and you walk around in a tuxedo with your fancy cufflinks, and it's like you couldn't dress like a simple guy. You have to. It's inappropriate. It's inappropriate to be in a place where people can't perform mitzvahs, and here you are showing off your mitzvahs by your tzitzis hanging out. It's not appropriate. So therefore, we tuck that in when we're in a cemetery. Same, by the way, if someone is in the Chera Kadisha, in the ritual burial society. So when you go in to take care of the deceased, also we note to all of the members, put your tzitzit inside, because here you're going to be dealing with a deceased who cannot perform a mitzvah. You shouldn't be dangling a mitzvah in front of him like, haha, I can perform it, but you can't. Okay, that's just another side note. But we recite the section about the tzitzis twice a day to remind ourselves of the Exodus, and that is in the Shema. Every day, morning, evening, and bedtime, we recite the Shema. I have the custom of saying it about 7 times, because when I put my children to sleep, with each one of my children, I say the Shema again. So that concludes the Parsha of Shalach, which was last week's Torah portion. Tonight, the 28th of June, we're going to also learn the coming week's Torah portion, which is the portion of Korach. Yes, sir.
I have a question. In the title, it's Korach, but in the body of the thing, it's Korah.
Yeah.
Why?
I noticed that today when I was reading it.
What do you mean in the body of the what?
In the body of the
Torah, the Parsha.
He's called Korah
Yeah.
without the CH.
Right.
In the title, it's Korach with the CH.
You're saying
That's right.
in the reading?
Yeah,
When
in the
you
actual
read it,
text.
when you read it
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
text.
it's there. I wondered the same thing today when I was reading it.
I mean, I wondered about that.
Well,
Oh, I think it's the translation of how they translate the name into English.
But the same translators are translating both things.
yeah.
I don't
Do
know.
you see it?
I see it.
Yeah, I noticed it today too. When I was reading it. I thought, wait a minute.
I just wrote this portion in my book.
Right. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know.
You guys should write to the authors.
There's only one author.
Yeah.
All right. Parshas, what's that? Yeah. Parshas Korach is the 5th portion in the book of Numbers, the 38th portion from the beginning of the Torah, 95 verses, 1,409 words, and 5,325 letters. There are 9 mitzvahs, 5 performative, and 4 prohibitions in this week's Torah portion. So first is the rebellion. The rebellion. What happened? Korach, Dasan, and Aviram, and 250 leaders of Israel rebel against the authority of Moshe and Aaron. Very, very interesting. We'll see soon that Moshe intercedes and prays for the people who were complaining about what happened. We see previously Moshe prays for the right. He prayed earlier for the spies. He prayed for the complainers. He prayed for those who the sin of the golden calf. Wherever Moshe was, he always prayed. Here comes Korach, Dasan, and Aviram, and the 250 men, and Moshe doesn't pray for them. And in fact, if you look, Moshe tells Hashem, "Get rid of these guys." What happened? Why is there a change of tone here? So there's something that we need to understand. It's okay for someone to be a Republican. It's okay for someone to be a Democrat. It's okay for someone to be a libertarian. It's not okay to be a communist. And that's what Korach was. Korach was a communist. What does he say?
All the people.
He says, if you look, it's unbelievable. They read the words of the portion. Moshe says something fascinating. Here we go. Rav Lochem, it is too much for you. Meaning, don't be our leaders. Ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim, for the entire assembly, they are all holy. Everyone is holy. We're all equal. We're all the same. Listen to what he says. And that's a good argument. That's a good argument. Uvesochem Hashem. And Hashem is with everyone. Now here comes the question. Umadua tisnaseu al kahal Hashem. So why do you raise yourselves above everybody else? You, the evil corporations. You are raising yourself up. We're all equal. We're all equal. Okay? Which rings in some way, like, everyone. It makes sense. Everyone should have the same home. Everyone should drive the same car. No one should have any extra privileges. This should just be equality.
Except who's going to run it?
Oh, there you go. That's where the communism comes in.
What was
right?
the comment?
Right?
I didn't hear the comment.
But who's going to run the crowd?
Yeah.
That's what Korach says. Me, I should be the leader. I should be. Why should you be the leader? I'll be the leader. Everyone is equal. We're all the same. And then he comes up with all of these fabricated ideas of how we're going to demonstrate that the Jewish people don't need the mitzvahs anymore either, because why do we need a tzitzit? We just mentioned previously about the laws of tzitzit. Why do we need the laws of tzitzit? If someone wears a blue garment, shouldn't that be enough? Why do they need a blue string? It's even better. Why do we need a Torah? If we have a house which is full, you have a library. We don't need a Torah anymore either. We have the holy books, and we don't need a mezuzah on the door because we have that reminder in the books of the Torah. And he starts chipping away at the different mitzvahs, meaning make me above. Meaning, as long as I'm in control, everything is fine. That's not the way it works. What's that? Well, it really is. It really is a very challenging. We'll see soon in a second that laws need to be applied equally. There's no one who's above the law, or at least there's no one who should be above the law. Okay? There's no one who should be above the law. In fact, we see that the Kohen, we see Moshe Rabbeinu, we see everyone had to obey the laws of the Torah without any exception. There was nobody who got special privilege. No one. They were looking for special privilege. It doesn't apply to us. It applies to everybody else, not to us. The rebels are punished by being swallowed by the earth, right? Which is a very unique punishment. Right? There are very few such punishments ever displayed in the world, right? We've seen floods, we've seen earthquakes, but here this, like, it opens up, they drop in, and it closes up, and they're done.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about how they got like that?
How they got so corrupt?
No, that they had to, the fire pits,
So,
because that's before they were swallowed.
well, so there's a whole process. I really want everyone to look into it, because if you can pass me over there, that the little medrash says number 4. It's the tall one. The tall one, yeah, number 4. Please, thank you so much. I apologize.
No problem.
So if you have a copy of this at home, the little medrash says, I highly recommend that you read through this, because it is so rich with the midrash that goes along with this, but also the storylines. Many times when you have midrash, you don't remember the storyline, or they don't outline the exact details of the flow of the parsha. And here in this print of the little medrash says he goes through every detail of the portion and adds in all of the midrash. I don't know. It's one of those books that I think the title was the wrong title for the book, because it looks like this is for the children. It says not for the children. You just picked a wrong title for your book, right? So I think it should be the layman's medrash, right?
The midrash for adults.
Well, there's another midrash says, you can leave it here. There's another midrash says, but that doesn't have the outline of the portion the way this one does. That, if you know the portion, you'll know how to apply it yourself. But if someone is learning the outline of the portion, so there's a lot that goes on. We'll see soon that everyone's like turning to Moshe now, complaining. Why did you need to do that? And they're resenting Moshe. They resent the death of Korach, and they blame Moshe for it. See, if you wouldn't have instigated them, if you wouldn't have asked God, then they would still be alive today. Now God gets angry. God's anger is manifested by a plague that besets the nation, and many thousands perish from that. Moshe intercedes once again for the people and prays. He instructs Aaron to atone for them, and the plague stops. So what's the resolution? How does this all get resolved? Now, there's so much midrash, and we can talk about this for hours, and we still won't give it enough justice. There is so much in this week's Torah portion. You can read many of these books here, that each one will give a little idea, a little nugget, a little something, and you still won't have a full picture of the whole. We have up on top, we have Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's Torah Anthology, right? And he spends dozens and dozens of pages dealing with this. There's so much to understand here and to unravel. God commands that the staffs, each inscribed with the name of one of the tribes, be placed in the Mishkan. And in the morning, the staffs everyone has, you have Reuben, Shimon, Levi from each tribe. The staff of Levi bearing Aaron's name sprouts, buds, blossoms, and yields ripe almonds. Again, there's so much to talk about why this is happening, right? What are all of these things? What do they represent? What does almonds represent? What are these blossoms and the buds? What is this talking about? I want you to please do your homework. Do homework, okay? And read up on this, because there's so much to learn about this, what they represent. This provides divine confirmation that Levi's tribe, which is Aaron, is chosen for priesthood, and verifies Aaron's position as Kohen Gadol, the high priest. Then we need clarity. We need clarity. The specific duties of the Levites, and the Kohanim are stated. It's very clear. Everybody knows your job, right? And you were assigned to this. This is your job. And we'll see that although Aaron, the priesthood started from Aaron, we see that there were new inductees into the tribe of Levi next week. No, in 3 weeks, in Parshas Pinchas. Because Pinchas, after he uses the spear to kill, there's a nicer word for it, yeah, but to execute, yeah. The two individuals there, right? So his kebab. So he also gets inducted into the Kohen family. The Kohanim were not to be landowners. We mentioned this previously, remember, but were to receive their sustenance from the tithes and other mandated gifts brought by the people, which we're going to talk about now, the first fruits. Okay, the first thing to remember in every time we get a paycheck is we assign 10% of it to charity. right? That is a constant reminder. Not only so, I divided up here as like agriculture, which was the livelihood of the people at the time, right? Today it's not necessarily agriculture, but remember the source of your blessing. I had a guy once call me up. He says, Rabbi, I have a check for you in my office. I'm like, oh, he's like, he says, Rabbi, if it was mine, you wouldn't see a dime. Okay.
Nice guy.
No. But what he meant was, it's Hashem's.
Right.
And he says, if it was mine, I'd never give it to you. But it's God's, so I might as well give it to you. Right? But I think it's a very healthy perspective that a person understands that 10% doesn't belong to me. It's not like it's mine and I'm doing an act of kindness and giving it to you. It's not mine to begin with. So in agriculture, it's the same, and people get very excited. Look at my tree that I grew. I remember I went with someone who owns a lot of property, farmland, and I went to his vineyards, and I saw all of his fruit trees and his pomegranates and his all these oranges and you name it. It was amazing. He felt very, very proud. It's his. It's my work. It's my doing. It's mine. Mine. Remember, it's a gift from Hashem. How do you determine that? How do you solidify it in your consciousness? The first of my fruit goes away. No, it's not for me. It's to remember that it's from Hashem. Hashem tells me to give it to the Kohen, to give it to the Levi, to bring it as an offering, bring it to Jerusalem. Right? It's not mine. Not only that, the first 3 years,
Right.
You don't touch any of it. You don't even prune it. Nothing. Just let it grow. Why? You're so excited. I want to get my first fruit. No. Don't touch it. I remember when we moved into our home, we had a beautiful lime tree in the back of our house, and it was producing limes. One of my children loves limes. He would just go out there after we knew that it was okay. But either way, I didn't know when it was planted. So I called my rabbi and I told him exactly when we moved into our house, which was in August. And he said August till Rosh Hashanah counts as the first year, right? And then the second year was the next year from Rosh Hashanah to, right? And then we had one more year. So after that set, the 2 and whatever years, and 2 years and 2 months, we were able to eat it. And it was terrific. And then the freeze came and then it was gone. But my son loved it. He can just go outside and get it. Hashem says, don't touch it. Now, it could be that it was there for many years, but we have no idea. We have no way to know. Now, humanity, we also have to remember that although we play a part in our children's lives, but we have to remember that our children are a gift from Hashem. A guy once asked me a question on parenting. So I told him, I said, you remember that your children don't belong to you. You don't own your children. They're given as a pikadon. A pikadon is like a loan that needs to be returned. You have to do the best job you can do. You don't own your kids. God gives every person, every parent is given a challenge in the children that they have with how to raise them the best way that they can be raised. Not the way I want to raise them. I want my children to be doctors. I want my children to be, the joke, I've said this numerous times. So there were 3 elderly women in an old age home. They're talking about, their accomplishments in life. And one says, my son's a doctor. Ooh, really? Wow, doctor. And another one says, my son's a lawyer. Wow. So the third lady stays quiet. Like, what's with your son? My son's a rabbi. They're like, oi, what happened? Right? So everybody has children that they need to bring to be the best the child can be. Not the best the parent wants them to be. If your child is supposed to be a doctor and you made him be a rabbi, you may have failed in your job. If your son was supposed to be a rabbi and you made him a doctor, you may have failed as a parent. whatever it is, but we have to, it's not only in their career, it's in being the greatest person that they can be. And parents give off to their children, it's pre-downloaded character, values. We don't even realize. We can talk about honesty all day, but if our children see dishonesty, there's nothing you can teach them that can right that wrong. It's embedded. When children see a fervor and a passion for Judaism, you don't have to say anything. They live it. And that's the responsibility. What we see here is the redemption of the firstborn and many other laws of offerings, but there's also the firstborn of the Petach Hamor, of the donkey, the firstborn of a donkey. These are things that you're very excited to get started, get the work going. Right? You can start. No. First it has to be redeemed. You have to buy it back from the Kohen. You had a question?
Shmito.
Yeah.
What if you're starting a new business in the year that you're not supposed to plow the field? Am I equating plowing the field with business? Am I doing that incorrectly? Or?
No. So like this, a business that isn't in the land of Israel doesn't have the laws of Shemitah.
Okay.
Right. So Shemitah, for example, I can plant. This year is a Shemitah year.
That's what I'm saying.
This year is a Shemitah year, but I don't live in the land of Israel, sadly. Right. So I can plant whatever I want to plant, but I can't eat from its fruits for the first 3 years.
In Texas.
Everywhere.
But in Israel.
In Israel also.
So then what's the difference? I'm confused.
Shemitah is different. Shemitah has nothing to do with it. Shemitah is the 7th year.
The 7th year.
The 7th year. This is the Shemitah year.
So you're not supposed to work.
You're not supposed to work the land during this year. You go to Israel now, you'll see tractors sitting on the side of the fields. No working.
But only in the land of Israel.
Only in the land of Israel.
Right. Over here, tractors, let's roll.
Tractors, let's roll.
Gotcha. All right.
But still, a Jew who owns a piece of property wherever it is around the world, the first 3 years of something new being grown, there's nothing to do with Shemitah.
Gotcha.
First 3 years, you just let it grow wild.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think that's a point because if it's a new business, where do you get your income from?
That is a truly interesting thing to think about. Hashem provides.
He does.
So
When anybody opens up a business, how do they provide right at the beginning?
See, buddy.
It's only applicable to agriculture. It's not applicable to being a tailor. It's not applicable to
Right, but but even a tailor, till they build a reputation, till people know about them, it takes time, right? Hashem helps.
Prevented from making a living from anything other than the agriculture.
Oh, correct.
It's restricted to agriculture. Period.
Correct.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right, my dear friends, have a remarkable Shabbos and a good Chodesh Tov. Have a beautiful new month ahead. It's a new month. What a gift. It's a double Rosh Chodesh. Tonight, tomorrow, and then tomorrow night and the day after. So it's Wednesday and Thursday is Rosh Chodesh.
Why? Why is it double?
Yeah, why is it?
Depending how many days there are in the month, in the Hebrew month, it depends how many days. It's a whole calendar. Not every year has double Rosh Chodesh for every month. Means this year might have it for Tammuz, next year might not have it. This year is a leap year. So some of the months are full months of 30, some are 29, some, yeah.
Okay. Chodesh Tov.
Definitely. So Chodesh Tov, everybody.
Tov.
It's a great
Thank you,
time
Rabbi
for
Wolbe.
prayer.
Shabbos.
Rosh Chodesh is a great time for prayer. Have a great Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you.
My observation is that the Parsha on Kokas is linked to the Parsha on Korach. Because, as you say,